Let's get the views of the experts now. I'm joined by John Cameron from the NSPCC and Jo Cleary from the College of Social Work. Thank you both for joining me tonight. John, let's start with you. Is Nick Clegg right there? Do you think Daniel's death should be on all our consciences?
Well, I think we need to be worried about what might have happened, and obviously the serious case review will give some indications when it's published very shortly. But I think we all have a responsibility to make sure that children are protected in our communities. As members of the public, we've got to make sure that if we have concerns, then those are reported. That's very, very clear, and it's absolutely essential that we don't hold back on that. And it's also on the responsibility of the local authorities and the police that when they receive that information, that's thoroughly assessed and that the appropriate action is taken to safeguard children.
And Jo Cleary, I know that we won't have full details of this initial report for 6 weeks, so it's very hard to talk about kind of what really happened here. But everybody tonight is watching this and asking, why didn't someone step in? Why didn't someone see the signs and stop this from happening? It seems such an obvious question, doesn't it?
It's clearly a question on everybody's minds at the moment because it's so horrific. It's very difficult to comprehend. And clearly, as John said, we do all have a responsibility. It's really important that other parents, neighbours and communities alert the NSPCC or social services or the police. Clearly, the serious case review is going to be critical in looking at each agency and that means the police, social services, teaching, etc., nurses, health visitors, all of these professionals are involved in protecting children. And the important thing in the serious case review is that the review will be looking at the involvement of each of those professionals in Daniel's very short life.
But John Cameron, in your experience, unfortunately, working for the NSPCC, you deal with abused children every day, and it's a shame that that's the reality in this country. But wouldn't it be obvious, this little boy, he was weighed 1.5 stones. He had been starved. He had bruises which were obvious to his face without even having to take his clothes off. Surely, if you're a teacher working at that school, you're a social worker, even a parent of one of the children who was picking up kids, in your experience, someone should have seen that.
There were obvious signs of very serious neglect.
You don't have to be an expert to pick up those signs.
And you don't have to be an expert, indeed, on that. They were very, very clear signs. We've also got to remember that it's not infrequent for parents like Daniel's parents to be very good at pulling the wool over sometimes some very experienced individuals. They tell tales. And what this, I think, tells us very clearly is, and we've had this historically as well, where people appear to come up with reasonable excuses for such appalling injuries and presentations of children. What we've got to do is keep a focus on the child, make sure that we actually do a thorough assessment, take into account what parents have to say, but don't take those at face value. And most importantly, when agencies like education are continually raising those particular issues, then it's important that social services and the police actually listen to them very carefully. But it's a collective, as Jo was saying, this is a collective responsibility.
It is a collective responsibility.
Around the whole range of professionals who are engaged with Daniel's life.
And unfortunately, it's not the first time we've been here. Of course, baby Peter Connolly is a case that we all remember, unfortunately. That went to a full official inquiry. There were big holes in how that system was working then. I mean, how do you feel personally, Jo, that we're back here again? That's how it seems, doesn't it?
Personally, it's horrific and it's hugely disappointing to be back in this position. But we need to reflect on it and look at it within a local system. This is Coventry's system, as there was Haringey's system. There is many that work really well.
Should heads roll? I mean, the local MP in Coventry is insisting that the Director of Child Services resign. He's also saying, Andrew Webb, who's the President of the Association of Directors of Children's Services, bit of a mouthful, he said this morning on the radio, we'll never prevent all children's deaths. Is he right? That's very depressing.
I think it's very early, too early at the moment, to actually start to apportion specific blame to individuals. We've got to hear, and I think we've got to be fair here and hear from the serious case review. But what's got to happen in social work generally, and I think social workers would support this, and that is we've got to move away from what we are calling a tick boxing exercise, and going down very strict procedures to getting people to start thinking about the needs of children and using sometimes common sense, but good practice as well, to make sure that we can put the right services in place and make the right assessments and ensure that children are protected.
And Jo Cleary, just briefly, I mean, social workers tend to be in the headlines when things go wrong, unfortunately, not for all the good work that they do. Do you feel that your industry is vilified at times like this? Do you get the support that you need?
Absolutely. And it's really good to hear John speaking out in this way. We cannot vilify them. How are we going to attract new social workers into the profession? And that's why the College of Social Work was set up, to raise standards. It was set up after the social work task force that the government set up.
Okay, just very briefly, John, what should happen now? Very briefly.
Well, I think we need to hear from the serious case review,
Absolutely.
take the learning from that and make sure that that learning is distributed right across all children's services and other social care agencies as well.
Okay, John, Cameron and Jo Cleary, thanks so much for your time tonight.